There's a version of this story you've been carrying for a long time, that if you had just loved him differently, maybe things would have gone differently. That if you had been less intense or more patient or said the right thing at the right moment, or held back when you reached out, or reached out when you held back, it would have worked. That somewhere in the sequence of everything that happened between you, there was a mistake you made, a wrong turn, a moment where you chose wrong, and that choice is the reason you're here instead of there. I want to sit with you inside that story for a second, not to validate it, but to look at it together with honest eyes, because you've been carrying it so long that it started to feel like the truth. And one of the most painful things that can happen to a person is when a story about themselves becomes so familiar it stops feeling like a story and starts feeling like a fact. If you trace that story all the way back to where it starts, you usually find a very specific moment, a moment where something shifted, where he pulled back, where the energy changed. And in that moment you started scanning, going back through the history of the connection, looking for the thing you did, the variable you could have controlled differently if you'd been paying closer attention. Maybe you reached out too soon. Maybe you said something that revealed too much. Maybe you pushed when you should have given space. The specific content of the theory doesn't actually matter. What matters is its underlying structure. You placed yourself as the responsible variable. You made yourself the cause of what went wrong. And here's why. It wasn't because you're irrational or prone to self-punishment. It was a completely understandable response to something that felt entirely out of your control. Because when things happen to us that we don't understand, the mind does something very human. It looks for a cause it can control, because a cause you can control means there's something you can do about it. If it's your fault, you can fix it. The alternative, that his running was about his own fear and his own unprocessed history and not really about the quality of your love, is actually in some ways the harder truth, because it means there's nothing to fix, no correctable mistake, just the reality of another person moving through their own journey on their own timeline, independent of how well or thoroughly you love them. Here's what's actually true. Your love was never the problem. The depth you loved him with, the way you saw him before he could see himself, the fact that you stayed open even when everything inside you was telling you to close, the loyalty you extended even when it cost you, the way you held the vision of who he could be on days when he couldn't hold it himself. None of that was wrong. None of it was too much. None of it was the mistake. The love itself was never the issue. What the love got mixed up with over time, that's what we're going to look at today. Today, February 18th, the sun just moved into Pisces. It crossed that threshold this morning and moved directly toward Venus, who has been sitting in Pisces for the last 8 days in her exaltation. Exaltation in astrology means a planet is functioning at her highest possible frequency. The environment, the sign, supports everything she's meant to do and be. It amplifies her gifts and gives her room to fully express what she's made of. Venus in Pisces is the highest frequency of love that exists in the zodiac. It is love without ego. Love that sees the soul instead of the personality. Love that wants to merge, to give everything, to make beauty out of even painful things. The love that says, I see you at your worst and I still see you. The love that doesn't need you to be performing correctly to keep extending itself. That is exactly the kind of love you have been carrying for him. But here's what Venus in Pisces also contains in its shadow. The part of this love frequency that can quietly, gradually, over months or years, dissolve you. Not because the love is wrong, but because Pisces, when unguarded, doesn't know where it ends and someone else begins. And if you've been loving him at this frequency, the question today's sky is asking you to sit with is this: have you been loving him so completely that you forgot to stay inside yourself while you were doing it? Before we go deeper, if this is already landing somewhere in your chest, leave a like and subscribe so you stay connected as we move through this Venus and Pisces energy together. Drop my love was never the problem in the comments. That's the frequency we're anchoring today. Let's continue. And if you've been doing this inner work wondering whether you're actually moving forward or just going in circles, I made something specifically for that. The Twin Flame Journey Tracker and Progress Workbook. 39 pages. It turns your invisible transformation into something you can actually see documented in front of you. Stage tracker, synchronicity log, monthly reviews, daily self-love check-ins. Not another thing to read. A system to prove to yourself that the work is working. Please check it out. The link is in the description. Let's talk about what Venus Exalted in Pisces actually does in the body of a woman in a twin flame connection. Because this isn't abstract astrology. You can feel this. You've felt it every single day of this journey. Venus in Pisces loves the way water fills a container. It takes the shape of whatever it's near. It flows into the cracks. It softens things it touches. And when you love someone at this frequency, you love them completely. Not just the version they present to the world, but all the versions underneath. The version they're scared to show. The version they've hidden from everyone else. The version that doesn't exist yet. The one still becoming. The one you can already see even when they can't see it themselves. You see who he is underneath all the running, underneath the walls, underneath the fear. You love that person so clearly that sometimes it feels like you're the only one who's ever really seen him. And that seeing, that deep Piscean knowing, it's real. I want to be clear about that because there's a tendency to pathologize the kind of knowing you have about this person. To call it projection, idealization, love addiction. And while those frameworks are sometimes useful, they can also become a way of dismissing something that is genuinely a gift. The X-ray vision for the soul that Venus in Pisces carries is real. You're not making him up. You're seeing qualities that are genuinely there, that he himself may not have full access to yet. The vision is accurate. The timing is the complicated part. But here's where it gets genuinely complicated. When you love someone that completely, when you can see that clearly who they could be, a specific trap opens up. And almost every divine feminine who carries this love frequency falls into it, especially in a twin flame connection where the soul-level recognition is so strong. The trap is this. You start loving the potential more than you tend to your own reality. You start organizing your internal life around him, around what he needs to heal, around when he's going to be ready, around his growth timeline, his awakening, his process of becoming who you can already see he's capable of being. And slowly, so slowly you don't notice it happening. Your own needs move to the background. Your own desires, your own sense of what you want your life to feel like, independent of this connection. Your own joy, your own becoming. Not because you're weak, not because you made a terrible choice, but because Venus in Pisces loves so selflessly that selflessness can tip into self-abandonment without anyone intending it to. You loved him the way water loves whatever it's poured into. Completely, without resistance, without conditions. And in doing so, over time, the container of you got harder to find. You poured so much of yourself into the experience of this connection that you lost some of the shape of. Your throat has been tight. It's not a failure of love. That's actually a testament to how real your love is, but it is something that needs to be seen. And that's exactly what Venus in her exaltation is here to illuminate today. Here's what today's sky is actually asking you to look at. Not the connection, not him, not whether this is going to work out. Today's sky is asking you to look at the thing underneath the love that has been quietly shaping how you experience the love. The sun entering Pisces today is significant in a very specific way. The sun in astrology represents your core identity, your sense of self, the part of you that says, I am, and the sun just moved into direct contact with Venus. Over the next several days, as this conjunction applies and perfects, your identity and your capacity to love and receive love are coming into direct union with each other. They're meeting, and that merger is asking an uncomfortable question. Have you kept those two things separate? Have you been loving at full capacity while simultaneously undervaluing yourself? Have you been capable of this extraordinary depth of feeling for him while walking around with a quiet but persistent sense that you are somehow not quite enough? Because that split, identity over here, capacity to love over there, the gap between them. That's where the worthiness wound lives. The North Node is also in Pisces right now. That matters. The North Node is the soul's compass, the direction your evolutionary arc is pointing, what you're here to grow into in this lifetime. Right now, with the North Node in Pisces alongside Venus and the Sun, the soul's compass is pointing directly at this. Learning to love completely and receive completely. Learning to be as open to what flows toward you as you have been to what flows out from you. And the worthiness wound is sneaky. It doesn't announce itself clearly. It doesn't say, "I don't think I'm worthy of love," in a direct sentence you can examine and correct. It lives in subtler places, in the patterns underneath the patterns. Here's what it actually sounds like. It sounds like, if I just show him how much I love him, eventually he'll understand my value. It sounds like, if I love him unconditionally, without asking for anything in return, eventually the universe will reward that and bring him back. It sounds like, I just need to be more healed, more patient, more spiritually developed, and then I'll be ready enough for him to choose me. Do you hear what all of those sentences have in common? In every single one, your worth is contingent. It's something that gets unlocked by your behavior, something he gets to confirm when you've earned it sufficiently. The prize at the end of the performance, not the starting point of your existence. And I want to be as gentle as possible here, because what I'm about to say is not a criticism. It is a mirror. The love you have been giving this man has been, at least in part, an extended audition. Not because you intended it to be, but because somewhere in your history, before he ever appeared in your life, you learned that love was conditional, that it was something you received in exchange for being good enough, accommodating enough, low maintenance enough. That love was something you earned rather than something you were inherently worthy of. And that early learning came with you into this connection. It has been quietly shaping how you give, how you wait, and how you interpret his responses. When he retreats, something in you hears, "I wasn't enough." When he doesn't reach out, something in you hears, "I haven't proven my value sufficiently yet." You can intellectually understand that his behavior is about his own wounds and not a referendum on your worth, and still feel it as a referendum on your worth. The knowing and the feeling are different things. The knowing lives in your mind. The feeling lives in your body, in the places where old learning is stored. Venus in Pisces in her shadow loves without receiving. She pours and pours and does not know how to open to what's trying to flow back toward her. Not because she doesn't deserve it, but because somewhere in her history, receiving started to feel dangerous, like something that could be taken away, like something she had to earn. She waits for him to see her worth instead of living already, right now, from the unshakable knowledge of it. That is the pattern completing under this sky. In her highest expression, Venus in Pisces doesn't love the way she does because she needs something in return. She loves this way because she is love. It's not a strategy. It's not an audition. It's not a performance. It's simply her nature. And alongside that giving, in her exaltation, Venus in Pisces also receives. She receives with the same openness that she gives. She doesn't close off what's trying to flow toward her. She doesn't deflect compliments or brace against good things or make herself small when love comes toward her. She lets it land. She lets it be real. The shift available to you right now, under this exact sky, is from Venus in Pisces in her shadow to Venus in Pisces in her exaltation. From loving in a way that is secretly asking the love to prove your worth, into loving from a place of already knowing your worth. From waiting to receive once you've earned it, into receiving now exactly where you are. I want to be specific about what that shift feels like in the body, because it is not a mental exercise. You cannot think your way into this. The worthiness wound lives in the body. It was installed in the body, and it heals in the body through felt experience, not through cognitive reframing. Here's where it lives. It lives in the tightening in your chest when you start to want something clearly, followed by a preemptive bracing. Like wanting too clearly will cause the loss of the thing wanted. It lives in the way you reflexively scan for what he needs before you've had time to register what you need. You imagine a scenario with him, and before you felt your own feelings about it, you're already in his perspective, already thinking about what you'd have to be for it to work for him. It lives in the slight holding of breath when something good comes toward you, the waiting to see if it gets taken away, the suspicion of good things. Real integration work right now is not more story processing. You have processed the story. You understand the narrative, the karmic underpinnings, the psychology. What needs to happen now is more physical, more somatic. Real integration is learning to soften that tightening, to breathe into the wanting instead of away from it, to let good things actually reach you instead of deflecting them on their way in. There is also a real and perceptible difference between being magnetic and being magnetic desperate. They can look almost identical from the outside, but they feel completely different from the inside, and the person on the receiving end can sense the difference even without language for it. Magnetic desperate is what happens when the love you're extending towards someone is tangled up with the need for them to receive it, confirm it, return it. The love itself is genuine, but it carries an invisible freight of need underneath it, and that freight has a quality of pulling, of asking, of an almost imperceptible pleading. Because the love is doing two jobs simultaneously, loving him and resolving the unfinished question of your own worth. And those two jobs are incompatible. You cannot love someone freely while simultaneously waiting for their response to tell you something about yourself. Magnetism from wholeness is different. It's love that doesn't need anything specific back from him. It's not indifference. It's the love, fully present but no longer tangled with the need for his particular response to confirm anything. The woman loving from this place has answered the question of her own worth for herself. The love she extends is clean. It has no freight underneath it, and that quality, clean love that doesn't ask him to be the source of someone's self-worth, is genuinely different to be near. It draws. It doesn't grasp. It creates space instead of pressure, not as a strategy, as a natural consequence of you actually doing this work. Something happened to you in this journey that you may not have fully stopped to acknowledge. You became someone different, not incrementally, in a significant, real, irreversible way. The version of you who first recognized this connection, who first felt the full force of it, who went through the early stages in confusion and longing and obsession with making sense of something that didn't fit any existing category. She is genuinely not who you are anymore. You've been changed. Not just in the ways that hurt, and the ways that make you more fully, more irreducibly yourself. Think about what this journey has actually built in you. You understand love differently now. You understand it as a practice, a discipline, a daily choice to stay honest with yourself even when honesty is uncomfortable. You've developed a capacity for sitting with ambiguity that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. The ability to hold something you can't control, can't predict, can't force into a timeline. You've developed a capacity for self-observation that is more sophisticated than most people develop in a lifetime. You know your patterns. You know the specific texture of your wound. You know the difference between genuine intuition and wishful thinking. And here's the thing Venus in Pisces today is specifically asking you to look at. A lot of women in this journey do all of this work. They become genuinely different people. They build real depth, real self-knowledge, real beauty of character that comes from having been through something hard and meeting it honestly. And then they walk around holding themselves as if they're still the version who was in the worst of it. Still slightly contracted, still slightly braced, still slightly apologetic about the intensity of what they feel, still waiting for some external confirmation that they've finally become enough. There is a gap between who you've actually become and how you're currently holding yourself in the world. And that gap is what today's sky is asking you to close. Not by doing more work, by updating your internal image of yourself to match your actual evolution. By carrying yourself as the woman who has done this, who is not diminished by having loved this deeply, but is genuinely expanded by it, more capable of real love, not less, more rooted in herself, not less. What does that look like concretely? You stop shrinking in contexts where you used to shrink. You stop preemptively apologizing for wanting what you want. You stop making yourself small so that other people feel more comfortable. You stop waiting for permission to take up your full space, not arrogantly, but with a quiet, settled quality that doesn't require anyone's approval to sustain itself. And when you actually step into the full version of who you've become, something shifts in the energetic field between you and him too, because what he has been running from was never you. What he has been running from was the version of you that needed him to complete something in her. When that need is genuinely gone, when you are whole independent of his choices, the entire dynamic of the connection changes. Not because you changed your strategy, because you actually changed. There's something else worth naming here, and it's about how you talk to yourself when you're alone. Not the self-talk you're aware of, the quieter layer underneath it. The running commentary that plays in the background when you're doing ordinary things, making coffee, driving somewhere, lying in bed before you sleep. A lot of women in this journey have a layer of self-talk that is almost constantly in his frame of reference, wondering what he's thinking, imagining how he'd respond to something, narrating their own experience as if they're presenting it to him, measuring moments of their day against the question of whether he would value this, whether this version of their life is one he would want to be part of. Venus in Pisces today is asking you to notice that, not to judge it, not to shame yourself for it, just to notice when your internal narrator has drifted into his perspective again and to gently return to your own. You are the subject of your own story, not the object of his. That shift in internal narrative, practiced quietly and consistently, is one of the most powerful things you can do right now. Let's get specific, because everything we've talked about is only useful if you can translate it into something you actually do differently starting today. The sky between now and the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on the 20th is particularly potent for this work. Saturn meeting Neptune at 0 degrees Aries is asking for one very specific thing, making the spiritual real in the material. Taking what you know in your soul and beginning to live it in your actual life. 0 degrees Aries is the most initiatory degree that exists. Something is genuinely new, and it requires your full participation to become real. The first practice, identify where you've been loving him more thoroughly than you've been loving yourself, and shift that balance by one concrete action this week. The question to ask yourself is, what is something I have been putting on hold because some part of me has been waiting for this to resolve first? Not a hypothetical, something specific. A creative project, a friendship, a physical practice, a plan you keep deferring. Name it. Write it down. And then identify one action you can take toward it this week. That's not giving up on this connection. That's the Saturn-Neptune conjunction doing its work through you. That's the spiritual truth becoming real in your material life. That's the integration completing itself. The second practice, work with the physical experience of worthiness directly in your body. Several times throughout the day, notice where there is tightness or contraction in your body. Not what you're thinking about, what you're actually feeling physically. And when you find those places, instead of moving away from them or analyzing them, breathe into them. Literally put your attention on the place that's tight and offer it breath with the intention of softening. Not forcing it open, just offering the possibility. This sounds almost too simple. It is not simple in practice. The worthiness wound has been contracting in those specific places for a long time. You're not dissolving it in one afternoon, but you can begin developing a relationship with it that is different. Instead of bracing against it, you breathe into it. That relationship, practiced over time, is what heals it. The third practice is specifically about receiving. For the next several days, notice every time something good comes toward you and consciously let it land instead of deflecting it. Someone says something kind. Instead of minimizing or redirecting, receive it. Let it sit in your chest for 3 full seconds before you respond. Something beautiful catches you off guard. Stop. Give it 5 seconds of full attention. Let it actually be received. This is literally retraining your nervous system. As you do, the energetic quality of what you're carrying changes. You become someone who is in the active experience of receiving, and that is energetically different from someone who is waiting to receive once they've earned it. Also, be thoughtful about the energy you bring to any reflection or journaling you do under this sky. Pisces energy can pull you into circular processing if you're not anchored. If you find yourself writing the same feelings in loops or returning to the same questions without resolution, that's a signal to close the journal and do something physical instead. Walk, cook, move your body. Venus in Pisces needs the body as a counterbalance to the inner world she tends to inhabit. One important caution about what not to do under this sky. Venus in Pisces, at her most beautiful, can create a kind of spiritual bypass if you're not careful. It's possible to spend a lot of time in the elevated perspective, the divine timing, the soul contract, the higher purpose of all of this, and use that elevation as a way of staying above the more human, more vulnerable ground-level emotions that still need to be felt. The simpler, more immediate reality of still missing him, of grief that hasn't been fully honored, of anger underneath the grief, and hurt underneath the anger. Venus in Pisces, in her exaltation, holds both. She holds the transcendent and the human simultaneously. She doesn't use one to avoid the other. The spiritual truth and the emotional reality coexist. You can know in your soul that this connection is sacred and unfolding on a timeline you can trust. And you can also feel, in your body, the very real human experience of loss and longing and wishing it were different. Both are true. Both are allowed. The integration is when both are present at the same time without one canceling the other out. So here's what I want you to hold from today. The love you've been giving this connection was never the problem. The depth of it, the loyalty of it, the way you've seen him, the way you've held space, the way you've believed in who he could be even when he couldn't believe it himself. None of that was wrong. None of it was too much. None of it was the reason things have been difficult. That capacity for love is one of the most genuinely beautiful things about you, and it will serve every relationship in your life, including and especially the one with yourself, when it flows from wholeness rather than from the wound. The wound isn't that you love too much. The wound is that somewhere along the way, before he ever appeared in your life, love became the currency you used to prove you were worth loving. Love became the performance you gave in exchange for recognition. And this connection, as exquisitely painful as it has been the mirror that finally made that pattern visible. It held up what you needed to see because you were ready to see it. The journey cracked this open, not to break you. It cracked it open so it could heal. So you could finally actually, in your body and not just your understanding, know that your worth is not something he grants you, not something confirmed by his readiness or his choices or his timeline, not something you earn through the patience or sacrificial nature of your love. Your worth is simply what you are. It was there before you met him. It will be there regardless of what happens next. It is not contingent. It simply is. Venus is exalted in Pisces right now. She is at her most powerful, most fully expressed in this sign, in this moment. And you are Venus in this story. You are the one who has loved at this frequency, the one who has seen at this depth, the one who has done this extraordinary, largely invisible, enormously demanding inner work. The exaltation isn't a gift being handed to you from outside. It's something you are becoming from inside. The recognition of your own nature, the full inhabiting of what you've always been. The sun joining Venus today is a light turning on in a room that's been slightly dim. It's your identity catching up to your capacity to love. The part of you that says, I am meeting the part of you that says, I love, and those two things finding each other, recognizing each other, becoming one integrated whole instead of a love that exceeds your self-worth. When that happens, when those two things are genuinely unified, when you love at full Venus in Pisces depth, from a self that is equally full. Something changes, not just in you, in the field of the connection itself, because you are no longer asking this connection to carry what it was never meant to carry. You are no longer waiting for him to resolve something in you that only you can resolve. And from that place, whatever this connection does next, you will meet it from solid ground, from yourself, from the fullness of who you are. That's the real reunion that's happening right now. Not the moment he shows up at your door, the reunion of your identity with your love, the reunion of your worth with your wanting, the exaltation of Venus in you becoming real. Whether that leads to physical union with him or simply leads you more completely into yourself, you're moving in the only direction that has ever mattered, toward wholeness, toward the full and unashamed inhabiting of who you actually are. If this landed somewhere true for you today, leave a like and subscribe so we stay connected through this Pisces season. Drop "My love was never the problem" in the comments one more time, not as consolation, as a declaration from a woman who is done waiting for someone else to confirm what she already knows. See you next time.